Cardinals, Falcons, 1 o'clock Sunday. And, of course, that is New Year's Day. Atlanta's -4, totals 41.5. Now, I don't think the Falcons are good enough to lay points in any type of spot. They failed to cover in 7 out of their last 9. They got the outright W only two times during that stretch. Now, the Falcons are also no threat to throw the football. These guys are chucking it for just $1.55 a game. Now, they're facing an Arizona team who covered in 3 out of their last 6. And in addition to that, those covers were against the likes of Tampa Bay, the Chargers, and the Rams. Now, the Cardinals are also playing some pretty good defense on the road. These guys are in the top 5 in fewest yards allowed per play while traveling. Zaven Collins has 93 tackles along with double-digit tackles for loss. Meanwhile, J.J. Watt has a team-high 9.5 sacks. Now, injury-wise, McCoy, Allen, Hill, and Murphy are questionable. Unfortunately, Budda Baker's done for the year. That's a shame because as bad as Arizona's been, he's a great player. He's very fun to watch. Meanwhile, for Atlanta on the other side, Edoga and Franks are questionable for them. Now, total-wise, we could potentially see some scoring. We could. Both defenses are really struggling, really bad. Plus, Arizona did go 4-2 to the over while traveling this year. They're also 60% to the over at any location. I'm going to lean toward Atlanta +4 over 41.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Panthers, Buccaneers, 1 o'clock East. Tampa Bay's the 3-point favorite. Total's 39.5. Now, the Bucs should be able to get the W in this one. They're throwing for just about 300 yards a game in Raymond James Stadium. When it comes to defensive play, their secondary is still one of the best in the NFC. These guys allow only 195 yards a game through the air. Now, Devin White and Levante David, they also lead the D with 228 total combined tackles. Now, they're facing a Panthers team who won just 1 game on the road this year, and they're certainly no threat throwing the football on the road. The Panthers are averaging under 165 passing yards a game while traveling. When it comes to the injury report, Smith is questionable with a foot. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay on the other side, Nassib, Dean, and Wirfs are questionable. Now, weather-wise, cloudy and 76 degrees by kickoff. When it comes to the total, the Bucs are 11-4 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Carolina saw unders against the likes of Denver, Baltimore, and Atlanta. I'm going to lean toward Tampa Bay -3, under 39.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Bears-Lions, 1 o'clock East. Detroit's the 6-point favorite. Total's 52. Now, I do like the Lions to bounce back here. They're really good offensively at Ford Field. They're also scoring a league-high 32 points a game in their own building. And they're also in the top 3 in home offensive yards per play. Jared Goff's thrown for nearly 4,000 yards, and he ranks 6th in touchdown passes. Meanwhile, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, they're facing a Chicago team who's on an 8-game skid. They covered the number only 2 times during that span. When it comes to offensive production, the Bears are certainly no threat throwing the football. They're actually throwing for fewer yards a game than any other team in the NFL. Now, injury-wise, Whitehair, St. Brown, Wesco, Claypool, and Jenkins are questionable for Chicago. Meanwhile, for Detroit, Deshaun Elliott is questionable for them. Now, total-wise, Detroit 6-2 to the over in their own building this year. They're also 10-5 to the over for the entire season. Meanwhile, Chicago saw 5 out of their last 7 on the road get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Detroit -6 over 52. Next game, it is going to be Browns-Commanders, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Washington's the 2-point favorite, totals 40.5. And even though the Commanders have struggled recently, they still have themselves a solid defensive front. They're in the top 10 in rush defense at home. Meanwhile, their secondary allows just 198 yards a game through the air. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, they lead the pass rush with 17 combined sacks. Meanwhile, Jamie Davis, he has a team-high 95 tackles. Now they're facing a Browns team who lost 5 of 7 on the road this year. Plus, Cleveland's also had a tough time slowing down the run on the road. They're allowing nearly 26 points a game while traveling. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Jadeveon Clowney, he is questionable for Cleveland. Meanwhile, for Washington, Charles, Curl, and Smith Williams are questionable for them. When it comes to the weather report, partly cloudy in the afternoon and 58 degrees by game time. Now, total-wise, Cleveland's 4-3 to the under away from home. Meanwhile, the Commanders saw 5 out of their last 7 in Landover stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Washington -2, under 40.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Broncos-Chiefs, 1 o'clock East. Kansas City's -13.5, totals 45. Now, the Chargers won 8 out of their last 9. They're actually throwing for more yards a game than any other. Did I say Chargers? The Chiefs, they won 8 out of their last 9, and they're throwing for more yards a game than any other franchise in football. Patty Mahomes, he's thrown for over 4,700 yards, and he has a league-high 37 touchdowns. Now, Travis Kelce, he has over 1,200 yards receiving, along with a dozen scores. Now, KC's facing a Broncos team who's got just 1 win on the road this year. They also haven't beaten the Chiefs straight up in years. Now, injury-wise, Hilton is questionable. Gregory's out. Meanwhile, for KC, Juju and Jody Fortson are questionable. When it comes to the weather, 53 degrees with a slight breeze by game time. Now, when it comes to the total, the Chiefs are 6-1 to the under at Arrowhead. Meanwhile, Denver is 75% to the under in their travels. I'm going to lean toward Kansas City, -13.5, under 45. Next ball game, it is going to be Colts-Giants, 1 o'clock East. New York's -6, totals 38. And as bad as the Colts are, well, the Giants got the W just 1 time in their last 6 outings. This Giant offense has been little threat throwing the football all season long. They're actually throwing for only 177 yards a game in their own stadium. And no real surprise here, guys. The Giants are in the bottom 5 in offensive yards per play at home. They're facing a Colts defense who's still solid at times despite their record. They're actually in the top 10 in slowing down the pass. And no real surprise here, guys. These guys are in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed per play. Zaire Franklin's leading the D with 150 tackles, along with a couple of forced fumbles. Meanwhile, Yanni Ngakoue and DeForest Buckner, they have 17.5 sacks between the both of them. Now, injury-wise, Moore, Doolin, and Granson are questionable. Looks like Nicky Foles, he's going to get the starting nod again at quarterback. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Jackson, Lemieux, and Ojulari are questionable for New York. Now, weather-wise, 54 degrees and breezy at kickoff. When it comes to the total, the G-Men saw 5 out of their last 8 at home stay under the number. Meanwhile, Indy went 67% to the under for the entire year. I'm going to lean toward Indianapolis +6, under 38. Next contest, Jags, Texans, 1 o'clock East. Jacksonville's -4.5, totals 44. Now, the Jags did win their last 3 straight. They covered the number in 5 out of their last 7. Now, the Jags have also had little issue getting on the scoreboard. They're in the top 10 in road scoring this year. Trevor Lawrence has thrown for over 3,700 yards and 24 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Travis Etienne, he's a 1,000-yard rusher. Now, they're facing a Houston team who allows more yards a game on the ground than any other team in football. They're actually giving up over 175 rushing yards a game at NRG Stadium. And out of 7 contests in their own building this year, the Texans have yet to record a win. Now, injury-wise, Stewart, Howard, and Green are questionable. Meanwhile, for Jacksonville, Fatukasi and Walker are questionable for them. When it comes to the total, Jacksonville went 6-2 to the over in their travels. Meanwhile, Houston saw overs against the likes of Kansas City, Dallas, and Philadelphia. I'm going to lean toward the Jaguars, -4.5, over 44. Next ball game, Dolphins, Patriots, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. New England's -3, totals 41.5. And even though the Pats have struggled recently, they're playing some pretty tough defense this season. They're allowing only 17 points a game in Foxborough. They're also giving up fewer yards per play at home than any other team in the league. Jawan Bentley has a team-high 109 tackles. Meanwhile, Matthew Judon and Josh Uche, they have 27 sacks between the both of them. Now they're facing a Miami team on the other side of things who lost their last 4 straight. And they also have a tough time stopping anyone on defense. The Fins are currently giving up more points a game on the road than any other franchise in the NFL right now. When it comes to quarterback play, it does look like Tua, and actually, he might be shut down for the season. Pretty sure he's not going to play this week. Guy just has had concussion problems all season long. I think this is like his 3rd now. But anyway, looks like Tua could be shut down for the year, at least for the regular season. And when it comes to the injury report, Fisher, Craycraft, Chubb, Eichenberg, they're all questionable. Meanwhile, for New England, Parker, Mills, Henry, Jones, Smith, and Harris are questionable for them. Now, weather-wise, pretty nice day in Foxborough, 55 degrees and breezy by kickoff. When it comes to the total, New England saw overs against the likes of the Raiders, Vikings, and Bears. Meanwhile, the Dolphins saw 6 out of their last 8 on the road get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward New England -3 over 41.5. Next contest, it is going to be Saints, Eagles, 1 o'clock East. Philadelphia is -6.5, totals 44. Now, I do think the Birds can get it done here with Minshew at the helm. If Hurts can't go, I know Hurts is still questionable. I don't see there being any reason you have to start him. I think Minshew can get the job done. This is an Eagles team who prides themselves in their run game. And even though Lane Johnson is banged up, shut down for the regular season, it looks like, I think they can pound it. Philly's in the top 3 in rushing yards per game at home. Of course, Miles Sanders, he's gained nearly 1,200 yards on the ground this year, 11 scores for the running back. Now, when it comes to defensive play, the Birds do have the #1 passing defense in the league. Hassan Reddick leads that pass rush with 14 sacks on the year. Now, they're facing a Saints team who lost 5 of 7 on the road this season, and they also covered the point spread just 2 times in those road games. Now, the Saints' biggest disparity is offensive time of possession. They just don't have the ball enough. They're dead last in that category, and they're also little threat running the football on the road. These guys are actually gaining just 79 yards per contest on the ground while traveling. Now, injury-wise, Pete, Lattimore, and Olave are questionable for New Orleans. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts is still questionable for them. Lane Johnson, like I said, looks like he's shut down for the rest of the regular season, looking to rest him for the playoffs. Now, weather-wise, 54 degrees and windy at game time. When it comes to the total, Philly saw unders against the likes of the Bears and the Colts. Meanwhile, the Saints are 7-1 to the under in their last 8. I'm going to lean toward Philly -6.5, under 44. Next game, Jets, Seahawks, 4:05 East. The New York Jets are -1.5, total 42 and a hook. And for what it's worth, the Jets do play their best football on the road. They're 4-3 straight up on the road this year. They allowed just 18 points a game in those contests. No real surprise here, guys. The Jets are in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play away from home. C.J. Mosley has a team best 142 tackles. Meanwhile, Quinnen Williams and Carl Lawson, they have 18 combined sacks. Now they're facing a Seattle club who lost 5 out of their last 6 themselves. When it comes to offensive production, the Hawks have been little threat running the football. These guys are actually in the bottom 5 in rush yards per game at home. Now, injury-wise, Woods, Lucas, Lockett, Neal, and Homer are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Jets, Joyner, Ogbui, Smith, Mims, and Eccles are questionable for them. When it comes to the weather, partly cloudy and chilly at game time. Looks like 42 degrees and very little breeze. When it comes to the total, Seattle saw 4 out of their last 7 at home stay under the total. Meanwhile, New York is 10-5 to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Jets, -1.5, under 42 and a hook. Next game, it is going to be 49ers at the Raiders, 4:05 Eastern start time. San Francisco's -7, totals 44. And as hot as the Niners have been, this is a pretty big number to cover on the road. And when they travel, the Niners do tend to start out slow offensively. These guys are in the bottom 10 in first quarter scoring away from home. Now they're facing a Vegas team who covered in 4 out of their last 6 themselves. And they have little issue moving the football at home. The Raiders average over 28 points a game in their own building. They're also in the top 3 in offensive yards per play at home. Now, Josh Jacobs, he has over 1,500 yards rushing. That is a league high. When it comes to defensive play, Max Crosby has 11.5 sacks on the year. Now, injury-wise, Jones, Perryman, Yassine, and Barton are questionable. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, Hyder and Jackson are questionable for them. When it comes to the total, Las Vegas went 5-1 to the over in their own building. Meanwhile, San Francisco went 6-3 to the over in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward the Raiders, +7, over 44. Next contest, Battle of Los Angeles. Talking about the Rams, Chargers, 4:25 East. The Chargers are -6.5, totals 41. Now, the Chargers have done a nice job covering the point spread recently. They're 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. And they certainly have little issue throwing the football. Justin Herbert's thrown for over 4,200 yards this year. He's actually 3rd in the league in that category. They're facing a Rams team who has just 1 road win on the year, and they've struggled slowing down the pass. This Rams secondary ranks in the bottom 5 in yards allowed on the road. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Donald, Howard, Wolford, and Copeland are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, James and Hall are questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, the Chargers saw overs against the likes of Arizona, Kansas City, and Seattle. Meanwhile, the Rams on the other side, they went 4-3 to the over in their last 7. I'm going to lean toward the Chargers, -6.5, over 41. Next contest, Vikings, Packers, 4:25 East. Green Bay's the 4-point favorite, totals 48. And even though the Packs favored at Lambeau, they really shut it down late in ball games. These guys are scoring fewer fourth quarter points at home than any other team in the league except for one. When it comes to covering the point spread, the Packers failed to cover in 4 out of their last 7 at home. They're facing a 12-3 Minnesota team who has little issue throwing the football. Kirk Cousins has thrown for over 4,100 yards. He's actually 5th in the league in that category. Of course, Justin Jefferson, he leads all wideouts with over 1,700 receiving yards. Now, injury-wise, Bradbury and Dantzler are questionable. Meanwhile, for Green Bay, Bakhtiari, Nixon, and Watson are possible inactives for them. When it comes to the weather, partly cloudy and cold by kickoff, 34 degrees at Lambeau. When it comes to the total, Green Bay went 4-2 to the over in their last 6. Meanwhile, the Vikes saw 5 out of their last 6 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota, +4, over 48. Next game, Steelers, Ravens, 8:20 Sunday night. Baltimore's the 3-point favorite, totals 36. Now, the Ravens continue to roll despite their injuries. They're 7-2 straight up in their last 9. They're still playing some pretty stifling defense. The Ravens allow only 18 points a game, and they do have a top 3 rushing defense. Patrick Queen has a team-high 106 tackles. Meanwhile, Justin Houston leads the pass rush with 9 sacks. They're facing a Pittsburgh team who struggles to score points. These guys are averaging only 16 points a game while traveling. And they're in the bottom 5 in offensive yards per play. When it comes to the injury report, Edmonds and Norwood are questionable for Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, for Baltimore, Campbell, Peters, and Jackson are questionable for them. Now, when it comes to the weather report, 50 degrees and mostly clear at kickoff. When it comes to the total, the Ravens are 6-1 to the under at M&T Bank Stadium. Meanwhile, the Steelers went 60% to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward Baltimore, -3, under 36. With that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final free pick for the video. It is going to be Bills-Bengals, 8:30 Monday night. Buffalo is the 1-point favorite on the road. Total's 49. Now, Buffalo won their last 6 straight, and they have one of the best defenses in the game. The Bills allow only 18 points per contest on the road. Edmonds and Milano, they have nearly 190 tackles combined on defense. Meanwhile, Rousseau and Epinesa, they have over 13 sacks between the both of them. Now, no real surprise here, guys. That Bills offense on the other side is in the top 3 in yards per play from scrimmage. They're facing a Bengals club who's done little to establish a run game themselves. These guys rush it for only 98 yards a game. When it comes to protecting the quarterback, well, Joe Burrow's still been sacked 39 times this season. Now, injury-wise, Collins and Hurst are questionable. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, Morse and Basham, they may sit out as well. They are questionable for them. When it comes to the weather report, cloudy and a chance of a shower by game time. Should be around the mid-50s in terms of temperature. When it comes to the total, the Bengals are 10-5 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Buffalo went 7-1 to the under in their travels. I'm going to lean toward Buffalo -1, under 49. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. I like Dallas -10.5, under 40.5 points. Give me Arizona +4, over 41.5. Tampa Bay -3, under 39.5. I'm 4-2 with a push in my last 7 NFL tier package bets on my website. Give me Detroit -6, over 52. Washington -2, under 40.5. Kansas City -13.5, under 45. Indianapolis +6, under 38. Jacksonville -4.5, over 44. New England -3, over 41.5. Philadelphia -6.5, under 44. New York Jets -1.5, under 42.5. Las Vegas +7, over 44. LA Chargers -6.5, over 41. Minnesota +4, over 48. Baltimore -3, under 36. With my next and final free pick, I'm going to lean toward Buffalo -1, under 49. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my website. If you guys do end up getting that NFL tier package, just keep in mind you're going to get access to that membership for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, I'm also going to throw in all of my cheaper memberships for you, absolutely free. They're going to be included with your purchase. But most importantly, got to thank you for joining me right here on TikTok or YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy week 17 to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.